this meeting to order.
Guardrail is this high.
Yes, no.
Except
Andy. Shh. Yeah, you. Yeah. Yeah. Less talky. Let's do roll call.
Willman,
here.
Voorhees,
Yo.
Kaut, Godis,
Here.
Davis,
I'm here.
Stepp,
Yes.
Hershey.
Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, are there any agenda, there is no agenda changes. Does anybody have any conflicts of interest they'd like to reveal tonight? Yes, Charlie?
Conflict number 8, I'll be removing myself from the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Are there any other conflicts that we have up here? All right, hearing none. Citizens appearing before council for items not appearing on the agenda.
This
Bill?
was off the change. Isn't this off?
I'm Bill Kite, the Executive Director of the Frontier Museum and Glenwood Springs Historical Society. I'd like to read for you tonight just one item from your City of Glenwood Springs draft 2020 to 2025 strategic vision. Under specific strategies, it says enhance and preserve and integrate the city's cultural heritage, and arts. I'd like to tell you how you could do that by increasing our budget to $85,000 like I asked last time when I was here. And I'd like for you to instruct your staff to work up on that and also work up what that would take for 2021 for inflation. Because I've mentioned now that this is the third time I've talked about inflation from the original $50,000 that you've given us over the years, and I appreciate that support very much, without any result. So if you really want to enhance heritage resources and the history in Glenwood Springs, I would like for you to do that, because if you don't, I'll tell you a couple of things that aren't going to happen just because I'm not Superman. One of the things that won't happen is to replace the fencing that 10 years ago the Heritage Museum obtained, and I've been out on the cemetery. Today I was out there helping get ready for the Ghost Walk, by the way, which we sold all the tickets out for. I was with Al and we were talking about putting that fencing in, so we got a person working on an estimate of what that will take to do. The international and national visitors that come there, I'd like you someday just to go out there and see how many people actually come to that museum. Not the museum, the museum's on my mind, to the cemetery. And I think you'd see that keeping it in top order is really an important thing. There's a sign there that needs to be replaced. I already have someone willing to pay for that. I'll have to drop that project as well as the grant that we're working on, the Inspire grant for a federal museum grant. Would be $50,000 the top amount we could get. I'm asking you to invest the extra $25,000 to get that $50,000. It's not guaranteed, and I'm not asking you as money to match. I'm asking for this money for the staff I have so I can do the job of executive director instead of all the other things that have to be done that I'm doing now. And I can't, with all good honesty and a straight face, tell you that I've got time to work on both that grant and the project that needs to be done at the cemetery. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Hadley Hebert, and I am a senior sustainability student at CMC, and I am a member of the Youth Water Leadership Team. And as a member of this team, I believe education and passion about environmental issues is important for all ages.
Hi, I'm Madeline Dean. I'm a student at Ross Montessori in Carbondale, and as a member of this team, I believe in healthy rivers and that the Colorado River can one day touch the sea again. The summit is up there. We come to your meeting today to invite you to attend the December 5th Health Rivers Youth Water Summit at the 3rd Street Center in Carbondale. The summit is a conference for and by students to share their evidence based on call to action preservations with decision and policymakers, as well as their peers from up and down the Rolling Fork Valley. The summit is an annual growing event that Youth Water Leadership Program, whose mission is to create an authentic student-centered learning experience that increases watership literacy through the civil actions, vice actions.
With approximately 100 middle, high school, and college students presenting at the summit from up and down the valley, it is critical to have representatives from each of the towns, counties, the river districts, the CWCB, and other water and river managers and decision makers present at the summit. The students are anticipating the opportunity to share with a real, authentic audience who can make real change at the policy level, at the local, watershed, regional, statewide, and national level. Please plan to attend to listen to your constituents, future voters, and powerful change makers of the future. We will follow up with an email to each of you with registration information, as well as more information about the program and highlights from the past 2 years. As we mentioned, the Healthy Rivers Youth Water Summit will be on Thursday, December 5th from 9 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and we are happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You guys did a great job.
And please get us
Congratulations on good work.
those emails so we can respond.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Someone else was on.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Andy Mueller. I live at 1004 Bennett Avenue. Actually here as the general manager of the Colorado River District, and our office is located at 201 Centennial Street, over near the Iron Mountain Hot Springs and the CDOT building. And want to just chat with council and ask you to help us out. The Two Rivers Park renovation, which we support entirely and we're very excited about. Frankly, we also did a little bit of funding, not anything compared to the city, but we did try to help you out with a little bit of money on that. Has caused some significant problems for the area where our office building is located. I think probably the largest one is that the pedestrian bridge over I-70 parallel to Devereaux Road has been closed because it empties out into the park. And many of my employees, as well as the guests at the Iron Mountain Hot Springs and employees in the two other offices in my building, as well as CDOT, commute to work by bike or walk. And they are no longer able to walk in any safe manner to our office building. That when you close the pedestrian bridge over I-70, it forces all the pedestrian traffic out onto Devereaux. And I'd ask, I know Mr. Davis has actually been up there to look at it, but I'd ask everybody to take a look at it because there's absolutely no sidewalk, there's no shoulder on the road, and there's no fence over I-70. There's about a knee-high guardrail. And literally since it's been closed, and I've now had to drive to work instead of bike, I've actually passed no less than 5 or 10 groups of tourists, just myself. One of them was a woman with a little stroller pushing it over this while traffic from both ways was coming and I-70 was below her. The other was a 70-year-old couple who had taken the train to Glenwood for the sole purpose of going to Iron Mountain Hot Springs. I actually stopped and talked to them as a CDOT plow truck was headed right at them, and they had no place to go. And this is really a dangerous condition of a public road. It is unsafe. You're going to end up hurting someone if this situation persists. I would also say on a second level, so I think that pedestrian bridge has to be opened. You have to find a way to do it. There are amazing amounts of pedestrians who use that bridge. It may not be as high volume as the one right here downtown, but it is an essential link in the pedestrian transit in that area. I also believe that with some creativity and occasional stoppages, you can actually create a fenced pedestrian access from downtown over the existing pedestrian bridge over the river through Two Rivers while the construction is going on. It happens at construction sites throughout the world all the time. And it would allow those employees of mine and others who choose to commute from downtown to be able to continue to do that in an environmentally friendly way. So I really would appreciate some serious attention to this. I think that every day this continues, you're putting lives at risk, and frankly, you're putting the city at risk financially, because this is something you are on notice about. This is something that will lead to significant injury and bodily harm. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, Terry Parch, would now be an appropriate time? I'd love for you to maybe comment on that. This is kind of in your bailiwick.
Yeah, I'm going to drag Brian up here with me. The two responsible parties.
Well, then I'll get mad at Brian then, not you.
I'm trying to bring up the graphic that Brian found for us, just so I can kind of explain how the construction at least was bid to work, and talk to you a little bit about, Brian and I walked the site today, and we'll kind of explain what we saw. Can you guys see that, or do we need to dim the lights? It's a little bit hard to read from the light. There it is. It's a little bit better. So when we bid this project, we bid it to close. The reason that we did that is because we felt like, we understood that there is some pedestrian use there. We really didn't anticipate as much use, as Andy's describing, across the existing pedestrian bridge there. We thought a lot of the use was actually in the park and park related. And, as we head into the winter, we thought that use would really, really decline as we start to get snow. So what we have and what the contractor is planning to do is this blue area here is where they will be staging. They're bringing in large amounts of stone from Lyons, Colorado, and they're going to be beginning to import it as soon as they can, because they're afraid of not being able to get it across the passes. So that stone's going to be staged here on the west side of the parking lot. They've set up a chipper, actually the chipper's here right now, and then they've set up something where they can screen the gravel for the trail. That's sitting right here. There is currently an office that's staged right there. What they intend to do is to begin construction of this lower bench. So they're going to be, grading along this lower bench and excavating out, some of that material. Thank you. And ideally, the perfect sequence was to take that material, screen it, and then move it over to where we will. Do you want to move it over to? Thank you. To where we would be building the causeway out to go get that railroad abutment. So you can see that we're taking a lot of heavy equipment. We're crossing the existing pedestrian bridge into Two Rivers Park there, and then hauling that equipment over to where we build a causeway for the abutment removal. From there, the trucks will circulate back along the north side of the park, and then come back into this area. Where they'll be staging all kinds of materials and equipment. They will also be using the driveway heavily, moving trucks and construction equipment through the driveway. So, the reason why we thought it was important to close the park with all of this activity is that if you come off of the bridge, at this point, there's no way, really to use the north path. You're going to be in conflict with the trucks moving in and out of that area, as well as even coming, from that pathway, down along the parking lot there. They've got heavy equipment right now. They're already chipping trees and that kind of thing right there. You know, Brian and I did walk the site to look at, you know, could we come off of the bridge and just create a pathway in the grass, you know, right adjacent to the lot there. You end up in the skate park, there's some variable terrain, maybe, you know, some of us, and maybe even most of us, could get through the skate park and make their way up to the entrance there. But, and, you know, that might get you, you know, get you to where you want to be. But, you know, the contractor's concern is that if we invite people into the park, you know, that there will be more, you know, just interactions between the people that are in the park and the actual construction. You know, the idea of trying to create something on Devereaux, you know, that's been a concern actually since 2014. That was when the Iron Mountain Hot Springs was built. And as a part of the review of that process, Gretchen Rice-Hill and Andrew McGregor and I went and walked that road. And one of the comments that I made in our staff report was that, you know, I really felt like there was a safety issue in trying to build, you know, what was going to be a you know, very pedestrian-heavy use, and, you know, potentially wanting to make a connection back over to the caverns. So we talked about the idea of building a sidewalk there. You know, we threw it around. It's a fairly expensive sidewalk, as are most things that we do around here. At that time, it was about a $700,000 sidewalk. You know, since then, well, and as a part of that development agreement, we set it aside. We said that, you know, that the conditions were that Mr. Beckley wouldn't oppose the city if we tried to create some sort of an attractions tax, and, you know, wouldn't oppose us in that way. So, or we threw out the idea of perhaps participating in the construction of that sidewalk sometime in the future. So I don't know if you're aware, but it was in the budget, at least for this coming year. And I know Steve Beckley is interested in now building this sidewalk, and I still think it's an important thing to build. We do have a very constrained budget. It didn't make the budget, or it got cut from the budget, but I think that Andy Mueller's right. People walking on this road, and I think even before the park closed, I see people walking out on the road. They may not be to the frequency that they are now, but I think that having an access through there that's actually a direct access instead of actually asking people to walk out of direction and into the parking lot and then make their way over to the River District or to CDOT, I think would be a valuable thing to have in the future. In the meantime, you know, Brian and I walked the road as well. I think the only way to really create access on the road that wasn't actually bringing people into conflict in the construction in the park would be to close one of those lanes and allow it to be a pedestrian way, and then have one-way traffic on the road. It does get narrow. You know, we talked about what it would take to perhaps try to create a lane on one side. You know, the current lane width is anywhere between 10 and 12 feet. I feel like if we put, you know, to protect pedestrians walking along the shoulder there correctly, we'd need to have concrete K-rail there. And if we did that, I'm not sure CDOT could get their plow trucks and their gravel trucks in. Brian and I were passed on the road by one of the big trucks headed towards the CDOT facility, and it is scary, it is dangerous. I wouldn't do it without concrete K-rail. And to do that, I think we would actually need to close one of those lanes. We could make it one way, we could set up signals. All of those things would add to the cost of the project. And maybe worthwhile, but you know, I guess I just want to explain to you what our rationale was, at least in the idea of closing the park. So that's where we are. Do you have any questions about it? Go ahead, Paul.
Are you able to do a crosswalk at the end of the pedestrian bridge, get them over to the other side of the road and have a path or a sidewalk on that side?
You know, the unfortunate part about Devereaux is it was built on a really steep embankment. So right there at the end of the bridge, it is, you know, if you cross the road there, you would still be constrained by guardrail on the west side, and you're just held in that lane. And even if you hopped the guardrail, you'd be on that steep embankment. And there's really just no way to cross we could cross people there, but there's no shoulder for them to walk on.
So that's going down like this as you cross the road when you're saying a steep and.
Yeah, both sides. I mean, it looks just like this on either side.
So Terry, how would you make it a one lane pass through? Would you have lights there or flaggers, or how would that work?
You know, I think we would want to set it up to be day and night. So, and we could set it up to only be one direction. You know, we have essentially a loop that Devereaux creates with Midland and Highway 6. We could set up a one direction, you know, be it north or south in that particular location. But I think for the business use and perhaps for the river district as well, we would probably want to have alternating one way, or, you know, where we had a signal that controlled the access and you waited your turn and then you were allowed to proceed from either direction. The signals are not inexpensive. I think that
11 to 12,000 a month.
yeah is what we
Would you say, Brian, how much?
It's $11,000 to $12,000 a month. Project is a 6-month project, so adds about $70,000. That's not including additional snow removal and ice melt and other maintenance that would be needed to provide a safe surface for pedestrian use along there.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with dropping into the park is that you hit the skateboard park.
Well,
No.
let me kind of show you hopefully with a cursor here. So Brian and I did, there is somewhat of a flat area as this walkway comes down. And you can weave your way through here. And you can weave your way right along this parking lot until right about here. And then you have to make your way through the skate park. There is a little way that you can take that, you know, goes to the west side. It's just a little incline. You know, for able-bodied people, it's just fine. All of this is just, it's in the grass and the dirt. You know, if you can make your way through there, we probably could set up some sort of a K-rail or a fence along the edge of that parking lot there to try and protect pedestrians in place. But it would be, you know, it's not our typical detour. It's a little rough, and we could make it, you know, try to connect you back into the intersection there behind the skate park, just to the south of the skate park.
There are some hills you have to navigate here as you come. You can't get off the trail until right about this bend here. It's all railed up, and then you navigate your way through here through the playground. They have materials that are stored up right against the curb here, a bunch of tree logs, and they'll be putting rock up all along here. It gets fairly narrow right along here, this section, and then it spits you into the skate park, and then you have to navigate up a fairly steep embankment here. At some point in the project, though, all this area is getting torn up to put a sidewalk in. Right now, there is no existing sidewalk into the driveway into the park. People have to walk along the grass until you get to about this point, and then you kind of navigate your way across the intersections. But this red area you see here is all getting torn up.
Immediately, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now?
This section is, we'll be moving from east to west, so this section should be done a little later in the project. The parking lot is getting torn up right now, and then the sidewalk should be towards the end there.
Yeah, it's a paving and concrete project, so likely in the spring. But you know, there will be heavy equipment moving through there pretty consistently. So, you know, trying to create a space where they could pop out. I don't know if you guys, it sounds like Steve has been to the park, but there's a forest of signs right now that are right in the entrance there trying to keep people out of the park. We'd have to figure out a way to weave the pedestrians through there. I don't think that it would be safe for bikes. I think that the best we could do would be able-bodied pedestrians that could make their way across the gravel and the kind of the weeds back there. But outside of trying to create a lane in Devereaux, I think we could do that as well, but at a cost of probably $60,000 or $70,000.
Steve?
So that addresses half the issue. A lot of the issue is that people in this community don't commute by car. They commute by walking or by biking. And the commute path that people are accustomed to is across the river pedestrian bridge to get across Two Rivers Park to go to not just Andy's building, but the tram, the auto dealership, other places. And I really think we need to do everything we can possibly do to accommodate that travel, because now what's happening is people are literally walking down Midland, going down the steep embankment to the railroad, crossing the railroad to get to the Devereaux Bridge, and that's their commute to work. So that's not a good alternative. I don't think the city should just settle on that as an alternative. I don't know why we can't have a construction fence closely, 10 feet off of that I-70 bridge, fence line. You can still pass trucks down your red line, but people can still walk through the park. The conflict is when you come across the Ped Bridge, I recognize that you've got what will effectively be a roadway where you'll have trucks and equipment there. So we may have to have some kind of a flagger there or something. It's not going to be like constant traffic. You're going to move a piece of equipment down, and then you may not see another piece of equipment through there for a number of hours. People in Glenwood are accustomed to construction. We actually built a new bridge right into our downtown. Constantly through that process, we were moving construction fence daily as the construction moved around that area, and people just had to figure it out. But I think we have to do everything we can possibly do to give people a reasonable alternative. Otherwise, they're going to take an unreasonable pathway to get there. I
Right
hate
now-
that this has become such an issue, and somebody said to me, well, the pathway wouldn't be ADA compliant. Well, neither is the pathway to the Davis Tunnel. Now there's about a 15% slope off of the Rio Grande Trail to go down to a very hastily put in gravel pathway to the tunnel that people are traveling on every day, far from ADA. We have a lot of pedestrian pathways in this community that are not ADA compliant. I know that whatever we do there, it's going to be rather rudimentary, but it at least gives people a better alternative than going down and crossing the rail yard by foot.
So we did look at that route also. What we've heard from the contractor is that, they're going to have kind of as they scrape this bench down and create the bench for the lower trail, they're going to be directly moving those trucks over to, put that material in the water essentially. So I think it's more than trucks than you expect. I think that they'll have to break that stream of trucks. I bet you it's more on the order of a truck every, maybe 10 minutes. But if the city were okay with adding the cost of a flagger there to stop the flow of trucks and allow a pedestrian across, we'd have to have them, from the time that the contractor began work to whenever they closed. I think it would be possible. We would also want to, Brian and I walked the whole fence line. They call this the CDOT access line. We could push pedestrians out to that access line, essentially where it meets the fence for our pump station 14,000 there, and run them up against the fence and along the access control line, and then, through the park up to this bridge, and then get them to here. It wouldn't get them through this area. If the goal of their journey is to make it to Devereaux or to Iron Mountain Hot Springs, we would probably we'd be asking them then to continue on, around here perhaps. Maybe we could get them on, the very perimeter of the site. But again, only for the able-bodied.
Right now, we have this detour built into the traffic control in the contract that the east pathway is to remain open until construction's going through here and then reopen again as soon as possible. Right now, people are able to cross the bridge and detour over to 116 and then take 6th Street around Two Rivers Park to access Devereaux. Once the railroad abutment starts and this pathway is torn up, that detour will take them to Grand Avenue Bridge to 6th Street and across to Devereaux if that's their final destination. It adds on a little bit of time, but you know, all detours are inconvenient by nature. But we just want to make sure that people are safe.
Yeah.
If we need to err, I'd rather err on the side of safety than convenience. But we are looking to see, you know, we have a few options. None of them are perfect solutions.
And all will cost the project more money. That's essentially the bottom line. You know, in any of those scenarios, we will have to, you know, put up construction fencing, add a flagger, add a signal. So any of those, of course, can be done. It's just a matter of money.
I was going to ask, do you guys want us to come back with change order, like ideas with cost to the project for implementing some of your suggestions at the next meeting?
I think we have
Or
to
if it
do
falls
more
within
than what we're doing now, and I did go over yesterday, as Andy alluded to, and I kind of walked all this site myself. It's not reasonable to expect people to take that detour route up and around on 6th Street and back over. They're just not going to do it. They're going to figure out another way, which is going to be more hazardous. I want to save lives too, and we have to do, I think, what the minimum that we can, even if it is moving around some fencing during the project, and I understand it's going to cost a little more to do that. I never had any idea as we proposed this project that it would actually fence off pedestrian bridges and close the entire park for the entire project. Yesterday when I was there, it's completely fenced off. There was one pickup truck there with one surveyor in the park, and that was it. So there's absolutely no reason to be fenced off at this point. I understand as construction expands and trucks start moving, then yeah, we're gonna have to start closing things off. I don't know when that'll be.
Hopefully this week. Yeah, they had a slow start. They started putting in their traffic control, mobilizing their trailer in, but that's, you know, we've been cleared to do everything that we're supposed to do. I anticipate a full start this week.
Yeah.
Charlie?
I agree with Steve. I think we need to do something. I'm not thrilled by the options, and I didn't know the parks would be closed either when we approved this. So it seems to me that the most reasonable thing to do is to direct people down to come over the current bridge over I-70 and on, is that Midland? Do we call it Midland too? The curves up back. Devereaux, I'm sorry. And that means closer to Lane to allow pedestrian access down there. I think we need to do that, get the lights in. If we're talking $70,000 to $100,000, I assume we don't have any extra money, but I think we just need to do that. For $70,000 to $100,000 is nothing if somebody gets injured.
Well, isn't it?
I couldn't fathom that we would do something that would make people safe as we can. I don't think you bring people through the park. I think once you let them into the park, and this is a decision you guys got to make, but just my logic is once they're in the park, it's going to be hard to control where they're going to go in the park. No matter what kind of fencing you put up, I think it's better to keep them out of there. So
That is the contractor's fear, that, you know, having them in the park kind of allows access, and we always, even, you know, in Jessica's site where we have a lot of really heavy equipment, we have people climbing up some of her stockpiles and just wanting to get a good view of what's going on. So keeping people out of construction zones is actually very, very difficult.
And I think we just do it as we did with the Great Avenue Bridge. We put lots of signs up and say, this is, if you want to get over to the Iron Spring Hot Springs, you want to get to the Centennial Building by walking or by bike, you got to go down 6th Avenue to go over the Devereaux Bridge, across I-70, the pedestrian bridge, and then after that point on, then we're going to have to close a lane down to the intersection, let them get safely into the road that goes down in front of, I guess Centennial Drive is what it's called, looking at the map you got up. So I just think that, again, you guys know how to do this better than I do, but I think that makes the most sense, and we just got to tell them you can't be in the park. I think it's a better thing. Thanks.
Paula?
Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate that you have a direction that you want to go, but I would really like to see what the city comes back with some proposals and
Yeah.
costs so that we can really make a decision on,
I agree.
yeah.
So
Sorry, city staff, not the whole city.
I appreciate that from both of you, from all of everybody. But, you know, this becomes less and less of an issue as it gets colder and colder. You know, in 45 days, this isn't going to be the issue that it is today. I think when you talk about adding flaggers and signals, $100,000 for, you know, this is what we did on 7th Street. We spent $130,000 to open that up for pedestrian access 45 days earlier. And I just don't want to spend $100,000 on flaggers and shutting down lanes of traffic. That's just me personally. I'm all about creating fencing that's not ADA compliant to connect Devereaux Road and take them through the skate park, and it not being ideal, but allowing at least some access. And then, yes, allowing people to take a little bit longer detour for the Pet Bridge on the east side, and understanding there might be a month in the winter where that isn't a possibility. But we just got to, you know, as Councilor Davis said, we're used to construction, and I think as long as we give people some kind of way, then we should try to do it. And if we wait 3 weeks, which is our next meeting, for people to come back, I don't know that this is really an issue. I'd like to spend $5,000 on some snow fence or construction fence or whatever it is to give people an immediate way to get through, at least on Devereaux right now, to get them able to access in businesses and Dagger Mountain Hot Springs. I would like to do that right now. And then maybe in 3 weeks, potentially have a larger conversation about spending $100,000 or whatever. I mean, but I'd like to do something minor now that could solve Andy's problems now.
I'd like to say I agree with that completely, and I just have to make one correction in that I think the point is this is a commuter route, and these people are 12 months a year. It's regardless of the weather. This is how they get from their home on Cowden to their job at the car dealership or at the Holiday Inn.
And I think there's times where Grand Avenue Bridge was down for 90 days and the entire community, the entire valley had to reroute for 90 days. So I think that the
And
people...
we put in shuttle services for them.
But we're talking about Cowden Drive. I mean, I think people in the downtown, there is a pedestrian bridge over there that people can go and they take 6th Street. There is
a generality, Cowden Drive. I think there's also people in Middle and Red Mountain.
I think we should fight because. So is there suggestion to put up some fencing, and I'm talking the area up here around the skate park? I know it's not ADA compliant, but just give some kind of relief within the next week so we can allow those commuters at least access to those areas?
So that is the easiest one. So we can put in some fencing, if you can see my little hand there, essentially around this side of the lot that will get you up to this intersection in some way or form. The problem, though, that Steve brought up, of people crossing from the bridge and then needing to cross this intersection where I think we're going to have heavy truck traffic, that's more expensive. We've got to add a person out there with a flag or with a stop sign to hold construction traffic while people cross.
At some point, not right now though, because they're working from east to west, or is that something that we have an issue with now?
I think we're gonna,
That's the first phase.
Yeah, the intent is to start taking this gravel, screening it and moving it over to build a causeway. CPW was really specific with the permit and with the city about wanting us to be in water at the beginning of October, which was kind of the rush of this project, so that we could scare the fish into laying their eggs on the other side. So we, the intent is, I guess, to do all of the in-water work as much as we possibly can, at the beginning of the project. So that's a long way of saying that, yes, we need that whole access open, and I think we'll need it in short order.
I think that 1 FTE would be not a bad cost. I mean, you're not hiring CDOT flaggers for that.
We don't have to hire CDOT flaggers, but there'll be some cost to it. I don't know exactly what it costs for a guy and a paddle, but they'll be there the whole time that we're, that the contractor's working.
Is it possible, if we're looking to do something like that, we can also then add signs that say no pedestrians going across the Devereaux Bridge? Because if it is that, okay,
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we've closed the
on both sides, just liability-wise.
Right, no,
Yeah.
there's a sign on one side, not on the other.
Could we add a sign on the other side?
And further down Devereaux. I mean,
Yeah.
we were looking at the sign coming out of the parking lot. In my mind, over by the CDOT building, we need signs early and often that there is no pedestrian access.
saying, don't walk the road, you're gonna get squished.
Yeah, and you just, and potentially providing some guidance where they can.
I would just say that, Mr. Mayor, people going to the hot springs from the hotels in the city are there year-round walking. It is absolutely a pedestrian pathway, and they struggle already with that bridge that Terry's right about, it coming off and then winding through the park, but they do it, and there are big groups of them. I mean, yesterday there was a group of 10 people standing there in the middle of the street trying to figure out how they were going to walk back to the hotel. And it's just not, and they do it all winter, even when it's snowing out, I see them out there walking. So it is not just, and I would also say, my employees, myself, I commute all the time. I understand we have to close the park at times, and I totally get it. I think going around is doable, but it's the Devereaux highway crossing that's so dangerous. And so finding an alternate quickly and cheaply is good, and it's frankly good for the city to do it really quickly, because it is dangerous right now.
And I would say that it was dangerous before. It was something we recognized in 2014, we have yet to address. I think that there is a plan out there, but, it's still as unfunded.
And the removal of the railroad abutment there, the foundation piece, that's not going to be for the entire length of the project. I mean, that'll
No,
be
it's a 60
days.
60-day activity. So
Yeah.
as soon as, we don't have to do that anymore, obviously, we.
Yeah, you wouldn't need the flagger anymore.
Yeah, change that condition immediately. But it was surprisingly long.
Can you put temporary fill in to get by the skate park to allow, still gonna be steep, at least you're not trying to climb up the side of a hill, can you put temporary fill in? That'd be cheaper than getting streetlights.
Along the embankment? I'll show you where, over time, beginning in 2014, we did talk to Steve Beckley about, building a pathway essentially in our park along the embankment there. And it is, the reason why it's expensive is because it's essentially a path that's supported by a retaining wall, or it's a cantilever path.
I'm just talking about coming out, if you're gonna come down into the
Come out
park.
this hill,
Yeah,
embankment.
put fill right there, that's what I'm talking about. Just to make that pathway up to the roadway. And again, I don't know,
I'm not sure we can add anything to it. We'd have to,
sorry, you guys are the engineers, you guys are engineers, not us.
yeah, and the other thing to consider and know is that once it snows, it will be a little bit treacherous. We'll do our best, but I don't think you probably want us to be shoveling it. We'll allow it to be what it is, and we'll fence it from the site.
Deborah and then Rick.
It's maybe give me a cap of what I can spend to try to fix this problem, because you're not going to solve it from the dais.
I have a cap.
Yeah, 0.
We know what your cap is.
Find the money. Seriously, my constituents didn't want this project. We wanted our streets fixed. We wanted the project on Red Mountain. And now we're going to spend more money. And you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. It's just like 7th Street. Open it, close it, open it. And let's spend some more money. Find some money somewhere else. People need to be safe, but there's endless construction in this community and people are sick of it, and that's what happens. Things get closed. Sorry, you have to go somewhere else. But I voted against this, Mr. Mayor.
You good?
I would propose we give a cap of $5,000 to address this for the next 3 weeks, and then have staff come back to us with other solutions or ideas and costs for the East Pedestrian Bridge and some winter work. That would be my suggestion to move us forward on this.
Will that get anywhere?
I'm just thinking of what it costs. I'd stand out there with a flag for 8 hours a day for 3 weeks for $5,000.
We might have to hire you, Jonathan.
Really?
Thanks, Jonathan. This is the people's money we're just wasting.
I'll see. You know, I honestly don't know if we can get a flagger for that, but I know that we can at least get fencing from the bridge back towards the intersection. So we can at least provide that link again. We may not be able to get the Devereaux, or the Two Rivers Park Bridge along all along the north edge of the park.
Yeah, I'm okay with not having a flagger. I think it is a construction area, it's traffic, it's a street, it is buyer beware, it is, at some point, we're gonna have people just look left and right and be able to assess that. I think if we get construction fence, at least for the next 3 weeks, to provide an immediate solution.
And that's just
Are
on
you saying you
Devereaux-
want it
just
along
on-
the I-70 corridor fencing as well?
No,
No, just this one on the.
just that one right now.
Right.
Yeah, I think we can do that for $5,000. But the other, you know, we'll just have to assess the cost of that, having that flagger. And I think that, you know, from a contractor's liability standpoint, you know, we can't do that. We've got to make sure the contractor and the city are covered. If
I would assume we would have to take that liability.
I assume that we would.
Have to do what?
Take the liability. I've lived right close to a very active construction zone, and even with flaggers, the other day I had flaggers direct me underneath moving construction. But if I had gotten squished, it would have been the contractor's fault, not the city's fault. I would still have been squished, but.
But we don't need a flagger just for this initial discussion.
No, we don't.
that we
That,
had.
I think we can fence that for $5,000 or likely less, and get people at least from sort of the end of that walkway back along to the intersection of the Park Drive and Centennial there.
And
So
that
that
would
takes
open-
care of half the issue.
Takes care of half the issue.
Well, 3/4, because it's more convenient if we have a path along I-70. But there is an alternate. There is no alternate along Devereaux right now. There is the alternate coming off that East Pedestrian Bridge. You jet out 100 yards, you go up to 6th Street, you take that around, and you go to the pet bridge, or the pedestrian walkway along 6th and 24.
I know how to route myself.
I'm just,
Thanks.
for the benefit of the public. But there is an alternative that is not convenient, but there is no alternative for Devereaux.
Yeah.
I would second Jonathan's plan, just so we can get this taken care of, so something safer for those pedestrians on that road. I don't want to hear that we've got groups of people walking down the middle of the street.
Yeah,
I appreciate your effort.
thank you.
Tony,
Yep.
did you press the button?
Can do that.
Because I'm not seeing your light.
I withdrew
Okay,
my request. I said what I had to say.
okay.
I don't support spending this anywhere more money.
Okay,
Are you guys clear? Because my head's foggy, so
Yes.
I'm not clear.
Can we take a
Can you
vote?
repeat your, yeah, I was gonna say, can you repeat your motion, Jonathan, and take a vote?
Yeah, I would suggest that for the next 3 weeks, we spend no more than $5,000 on fencing, not a flagger, for the Devereaux detour to go through the park, skate park area, and that's it. And then in 3 weeks, come back with some alternatives for expanded access for other areas and costs.
Sure.
Is that
Got
good,
it.
Paula?
Right, that's good. I second that.
Okay. Just want to make sure I got it right. All right, let's take the vote.
I think I already voted.
Hershey, no. Step, yes. Davis, yes. Godus, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woolman, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention, too.
You're not staying?
Are there any other citizen comments? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back for council comments.
I still have a vote out there.
Paula?
I just want basically to put out to the public that the Middle Colorado Watershed Council is doing their annual restoration and river cleanup this Saturday and invite people to come participate with us. This year, we're going to be restoring the bank along the Colorado River in silt and planting some willows and putting down some coconut matting, and then we're going to do some other projects depending on how many volunteers we get out there. So just inviting the public out to that.
Where do they show up?
It's a check-in at the Silt Island Park at 9:30 in the morning. We'll start projects at 10, finish at 1, and have some lunch and a raffle. So,
Is there beer involved?
are you coming? I'll bring a beer for you. But it's a good deal, and it's especially good for fishermen, right?
Thank you, Paula. Charlie?
I just want to remind the council, I know Jonathan and Paula know, but the ad hoc group of the tourism, DDA, and city meetings at 1 o'clock on Monday, and other council members are welcome if they want to attend.
And I will not be able to attend. I'll be out of town, so I apologize.
That's why I scheduled that.
I appreciate that. Rick?
Yeah, just a shout out to the River Commission and to Trent and to Brian for successful planting on the old Raymond property last Saturday. Folks showed up and we were able to implant about 81 shrubs down on that property, and it's just sort of a heartening thing to see the community turn out and do that.
Great.
Thank you, Rick. Any other comments? All right, I will look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move.
Second.
Been moved by Rick, seconded by Charlie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Item number 8, planning file 25-19, consideration of a major site architectural plan review to convert an existing church building into a 13 multifamily unit.
The building next to me is a church. Was a church.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to
You should
some-
go inside. 'Cause the ceilings are about twice the size of this.
I went to a funeral service.
Good evening, council.
Yeah.
The proposed project involves the conversion of an existing 1950s era church building into 13 one-bedroom multifamily units, each ranging in size from about 535 square feet to 825 square feet. All of those units, the proposal is to be condominiumized. The project also involves a minor 2-lot subdivision, so this roughly 1-acre site will be divided into 2 roughly half-acre properties. Just a little brief about the review process, which in this case is slightly complicated. The normally 13 units is a site architectural review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the 2-lot subdivision is normally considered administratively. However, this project involves a land dedication of right-of-way, so the code requires that City Council review and decide on the site architectural proposal for those 13 units, and then also consideration of acceptance or decline of the land dedication portion of the subdivision. So my remaining presentation, I'm just going to focus on 3 main items in the project details. The first being that land dedication. Right now, the church's west boundary makes up about the first half of 135, County Road 135. And that is about the first 320 feet or so. In 1956, the church and other owners along this roadway dedicated a 30-foot wide public access easement, 15 feet from each owner on either side of the roadway. Then in 1986, the city annexed a good portion of West Glenwood, including all of the properties along County Road 135. Over the years, as properties have developed, the city has requested a dedication of right-of-way from each of those property owners as I said, when they redevelop their property. The Development Code, section 070.040.030, allows us to take up to 1/2 of what's called a deficient roadway amount. County Road 135, like I said, is only 30 feet wide. Right now, the current street standard, and it is classified as a local road, and local roads, the current street standard is a 75-foot width. When we circulated this application through the various city departments, the engineering department commented that they would like a 15-foot wide dedication from this particular property owner. Now, I must mention that of the 18 properties that are located along 135, we have requested land dedications from 14 of them. So 4 of them have not redeveloped, and this is one of the 4. Okay. The next detail of the project I'd like to talk about is the access easement, which is along the east side of this property. Right now, this easement provides access for Discount Tire, Valley View West condominiums, and a single-family home. The easement is memorialized in a 1952 agreement that was not really specific. For example, it didn't include any provisions for maintenance. The former church also used this easement to access 2 of its parking lots, although it's not apparent that they were a party to this original agreement. Because it was not evident that the current owner has clear right to use this easement after the August Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, the property owners that did use the easement and the owner of the particular property in question, this TB and SB LLC, and their attorneys met and agreed upon proportional shares of maintenance to use this access, and the elimination of access to and from the newly created Lot 2, which will be the front half of this property that is immediately adjacent to Highway 6. And so that property will have its primary access off of 135 Road. And then the new agreement also adds provisions for adding a right turn lane on this access road at some point in the future. And I need to mention that that obviously would be subject to CDOT review and approval. So the third and final item I want to address is the parking lot design. When the project was first reviewed, the original design included 10 pull-in spaces along County Road 135. The issues were that only 2 of the proposed units will have their doorways facing 135 Road. More importantly, the issue was that pull-in, pull-out spaces for multifamily uses are not allowed in the engineering design standards. So the owner has redesigned those parking spaces, so now they are parallel. There's 4 parallel spaces along 135 Road. There will be a 5-foot wide sidewalk, and there's going to be a densely landscaped buffer between the building and the sidewalk, the parking spaces, and 135 Road. This parking lot redesign meets the engineering design standards and the development code requirements. So in summary, your actions are, the first action is consideration of that right-of-way dedication. It's 15 feet wide and 324.86 feet long. And staff recommends that council accept that dedication. The next and last action item is consideration of the site architectural plan review, which allows the conversion of this existing building into 13 multifamily units. At their meeting on August 27th, the Planning and Zoning Commission
conducted a public hearing, and they found that the project was consistent with the comprehensive plan. It met the purpose and intent of the municipal code. And with conditions, they felt that it substantially met the specific design and development standards. So their recommendation, the majority of the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that you all approve the project with findings and conditions. And staff recommends that you uphold their recommendation. And at your places, your staff report includes a list of those conditions, and the findings are found on page 21 of your packet, and those conditions are on page 22 and 23 of your packet. So I'll answer any questions that you might have.
All right, any questions from council for staff?
I have none.
All right, seeing none.
Okay.
Do we have
And
any?
The owner is here
Wonderful.
to highlight the project.
Good evening, Brad Jordan. I assume you want address and all that stuff. Is that correct? Or just the name?
A little or closer.
Sorry.
I can hear you.
Brad Jordan. I'm the applicant in this case, or the resident architect, principal architect for the project. We also have legal counsel here representing us in Chad Lee. We also have Dave Kotz with SGM, our civil engineer, so we can answer I would expect all the questions that you may have. We also have the owner here, who is a local resident of the Glenwood Springs area and a business owner. You know, it's pretty cut and dry. I think if you look at the picture, it looks far different than the existing dilapidated church. And we also have color samples as well if you choose to look at them. We're going to use a kind of a brown and beige tones on this particular project. So it'll be quite nice, and obviously with the need for housing in this community, it's always a nice thing to be able to add more housing. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
That's great. We have a rent affordable housing a fee in lieu of program? Are any of these units going to be dedicated towards that?
No, they are not.
Okay. Sorry, jumped in line. Is there any questions for the applicant? Oh gosh, okay, well, seeing none. Public comment. Does anybody from the public like to speak on this, or any other member of the team? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion and/or a vote, or motion, excuse me.
I move to accept the 15-foot by 324.86-foot long land dedication for use as 135 road right-of-way related to the minor subdivision of a parcel located at 62.135 road.
Second. Oh, darn.
It's been moved by Rick and seconded by Tony.
Thank you.
You gonna give him that? You know, Tony said yes to something. I'm gonna give it to him. Is there any further conversation? We're taking these separately, right, Carl?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other conversation? Seeing none, let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Stepp, yes. Davis, yes. Godus, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
All right, I will now look for a motion. Well, I don't take separate public comment on action 2, do I, Carl?
No, you've already taken public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'll now look for a motion on action 2, site architectural plan review.
I move to uphold the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation and approve the conversion of an existing building into 13 multifamily units based on findings on page 21 and conditions on page 22 and 23 of the council's October 17, 2019 packet.
Second.
Second.
I third.
You can't second.
That's all I got me. It's been moved by Rick, seconded by Paula. For action item number 2, is there any further discussion?
We're just so excited about this project.
We are. All right, let's call the question.
Thank you, Chad.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Davis, yes. Godus, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the applicants for your time tonight and for this project. It looks great.
Yeah, I appreciate the additional housing in town.
Thank you,
and
Mr. Lee.
I think that building's been an eyesore for a long time, so
Yeah.
it'd be great.
It'll be an asset to West Glenwood. Thank you.
Thanks, Gresh, for getting us an extra 15 feet. All right, item number 9, planning file 3719, license to encroach for various above and below ground encroachments
No,
into
that's-
6th Street and North.
I'd move to continue that. The applicant has requested a continuance.
Second.
All right, been moved by Tony, seconded by Steve. Let's call the question. No.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Davis, yes. Godus, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
I assume this is going to be on the agenda then in 3 weeks?
Yes. It'll either be on the agenda or something else.
Or something will happen.
Something will happen.
All right, item number 10, public hearing for the proposed budget of 2020. This is really just an opportunity. I believe there is no presentation. We had a presentation 2 weeks ago by staff. We've asked questions, council's asked questions in private and on the dais, and I think we're working through a lot of those. There will be further opportunities in 3 weeks at the November 7th meeting. But the opportunity right now is for the public to come forward with any questions, comments, comments mostly, about our 2020 budget. And we are here to take those in and to listen to them. And then if there's items that we feel need to be incorporated before the final presentation of the budget on November 7th, that will be the time that we'd incorporate that.
To clarify though, would people be able, Carl or Mr. Mayor, to comment on the next date or not?
Absolutely. On November 7th, we'd have a public comment as
Yeah,
well.
I was going to say you can. It's
Yeah.
just, this is the official, just for the record, this is the official public hearing as required by statute and charter on the budget. So this is the time when those comments become part of the official record from the
Oh,
public.
Andy, Bill.
I do want to say this.
Perfect.
Andy Mueller, Bennett again. I know that there's been a lot of pressure on this council for spending money on things other than roads. And I want to just say thank you to the council for spending money on our parks and on our recreation facilities and on things that make this town the place that we all choose to live. And that while the streets are important, absolutely, the other very essential services that governments provide that provide a quality of life for all of our residents, that make it, our recreation center, for instance, accessible to our lower income residents and to a diverse crowd of folks. It's really important. And you oftentimes only hear from people who are complaining about government spending. I want to thank you for wisely spending our money, supporting the things that matter to those of us who live here. So thank you.
Thanks for those comments.
Thank you, Andy.
We can do both.
And Andy, thank you very much for your service on Parks and Rec Commission. I know you're a really valuable member there, and we appreciate that.
Sometimes staff appreciates it, most of the time.
He's an opinionated.
I think we always appreciate you, Andy.
We appreciate every attorney whenever we get them on any of our boards and commissions.
Now you've gone too far.
Now I have. All right, is there any other public comment from the public?
I thought Christian was going to approach and then he didn't.
I'd just like to reiterate my comments earlier and have them entered into the record at this time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Can I ask Bill, just really quickly, your present budget and what you're proposing, the difference between the two, please?
Present budget is $60,000. I'm asking for $25,000 increase would be used for the 2 staff members, part-time staff members I have, to alleviate some of the duties I have so that I can do the 2 projects I mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Bill. Christian?
No, sir.
All right. We don't really have
Number
It's,
11.
it says council discussion motion, but that's not where we're doing it. We're going to be doing it at the next.
Seven, so just need to close the public hearing.
All right, public hearing is closed. Item number 11, Resolution 2019-37, a resolution of the City Council of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending the downtown parking permit program.
Okay, the intent of this one, and I mess it up slightly, is to not allow permit parking on 7th Street, the 200, 300, and 400 block. As soon as we opened 7th Street up, we noticed our residents were parking there with their permit parking, which they're allowed to do, and we believe it was the intent of council to keep those more marketable spaces open and not have residents parking there for 72 hours at a time. We're going to open up the new 7th Street sewer lot. It's going to have about 40 to 60 more spaces. I don't know if we've striped it yet. No, but that is coming, and that will be a place where people can park long-term, and that is what we're suggesting.
And to be clear, you're talking about from Colorado to Cooper
You're not talking about
on 7th.
west of Colorado at all.
Colorado to Cooper on 7th.
Yeah.
So I'd make a
It's kind of
motion
where-
that we accept your recommendation to keep that area closed to residential permit parking.
I
It's
inadvertently
been
put
moved by
in,
Steve and seconded by Tony.
Yeah.
can I just, I inadvertently
No,
used
we're
the,
done.
I just have to
We're done.
clarify.
No,
I
we're done.
inadvertently took the ones that had been approved before you guys took out the $50 administrative fee. That was just a mistake. We will remove that.
Thank you. Thanks for
So what
catching
you're
that,
saying
Paul.
is like people are parking like in front of the Pullman with their 72-hour.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
which
do
they're
have one
allowed to
question.
do now.
Can we vote?
Oh,
on
I'm
that?
sorry.
Wait, I have a
No,
question.
nope. We have a light.
Paula?
God, sorry, let me just speak up
I
here.
didn't vote.
My only question is, with this parking, and this was brought up, I think, in some public comments, that the parking lot between 8th and 9th on Cooper, there is some people aren't understanding what the parking rules are there. It was 2 hours, it's 24 hours, there's residents.
It's 24 hours. Someone went and scratched off the 2, not us.
Okay.
And we just need to fix the sign.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're taking care of that. Okay,
Great.
because that's parking too. Okay, thank you.
Tampering.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Is there any other comments? Let's call the question.
I could comment, but I'll save it for another week.
Well, is it about this?
It was about parking,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
for residential parking.
But is it on about 7th Street specifically?
It's not about that specific area.
So that is our
7th Street.
resolution that we have in
So
front of us.
Yeah, that's why.
No, I appreciate
No,
that.
he's,
Go ahead.
Okay. Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Davis, yes. Goddess, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion
I
passes
caught myself.
unanimously.
All right, item number 12, city councilor use of social media process.
I'd like to make a motion that we table that.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries?
3 minutes?
Motion carries. Report from city manager.
Okay, the upcoming meetings, I got a request from Counselor Davis to discuss canceling the second meeting in November. I also wanted to point out that the second meeting in December is the 19th of December, and the first meeting in January is January 2nd. So I'm not recommending that we cancel any of these. I'm offering this up for your consideration.
could you say the dates in December again?
The second meeting is December 19th,
Oh, okay, and then there's not another one till January.
2nd.
And Christmas is on a Wednesday, I think, or whatever.
It's usually on the 25th.
Yeah.
No, this year it falls on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Paula, go ahead.
I'm mostly concerned about the December 2nd. I think that would be the most difficult one to,
December 2nd?
I mean, January 2nd, sorry, to take care of, and then it gets back to kind of our July thing of how many meetings do we miss, so.
You know, I think in July, we only missed one, because in June and July, there was 2 that we could, but I think we moved one back.
Right, so
could
then we have to
potentially-
look at that again,
Right.
if we're gonna do that.
Steve, what's your issue in November? Are you,
It's just the week before Thanksgiving, people are traveling. I won't be here. It's not important that I'm here, really.
We know.
I think, you know, if you,
I think we'll discuss the social media policy on that day.
well, you could do that.
I wouldn't count on it.
You know, and I know that Christmas is going to be a lot of pressure for travel as well, and our meeting on December is the 19th.
And I
So that
plan-
even pushes closer. I'm good to let this go. I'm not, I don't care. If you guys don't care if I'm here or not, then I
Sure
don't
we do.
really
We
care
do.
if you have a meeting.
Apparently, nobody cared that
I don't get
wasn't here
paid by the
last week.
meeting,
Nobody
so-
even texted me, I hope you feel better, except you.
Just don't load the agenda.
Because I did it.
Yeah, I'd also like to say I won't be here for the second meeting in December, so.
Okay, and the second meeting of December and the January 2nd one are problematic for those of us who have school-aged children because the 20th is not school. So, like, in theory, families could be taking.
Exactly how many of us up here have school-aged children?
Some of us have school-aged grandchildren.
Yeah,
Kristen.
Yes, some of us.
I'm
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't think that's a big problem. I can be around for that.
You can do one or the other, but not both.
Yeah, I think the January 2nd one I think is more problematic because I will not be here for the second. Not that that's
So are you
super.
suggesting that we have this December 19th meeting?
Yes.
But not the January 2nd meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And have the November meeting.
Yes.
That would be, I'm okay in it because I'm a hermit, I don't go anywhere, but.
Are you done?
I think that makes sense. The second makes a lot of
I
sense.
have nowhere to go either, Charlie, so I'm free.
You and I can have a meeting.
Yeah, we'll have a meeting.
Carl, do you have anything to add?
For this evening?
Yeah.
I think you should go on, and like Carl.
Let me chat.
So we're bringing back the resolution canceling the January 2nd.
Second meeting.
Yes.
All right. With that being said, meeting is adjourned.
Wow.